Okay, we're into an episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff to have a really cool sneak preview for you guys from a brand new brand called UBIQ or UBIQ. I might be saying that completely wrong, but you know what? It's so new, nobody knows the right way yet. So essentially, they're a new up-and-coming micro brand headquartered out of Singapore, and they are coming to Kickstarter in February of 2024. In terms of type of watch, this would cover two different genres. A dive watch, so you're going to find, water resistance, so some type of screw-down crown, something tough, legible. Dive time bezel is always nice, and a diver's extension is great on bracelets, but it's also crossing over the genre of a traveler's watch. So you're going to want, of course, maybe a GMT or world timer function. In this case, a 12-hour scale on the rotating bezel, a bi-directional rotating bezel at that, so that you're able to track multiple time zones with relative ease. This is their Dual Series 01, and this is the C-Set colorway, and this is, of course, a prototype. So UBIQ's first watch launch is this dual-use diver/traveler with a vibrant and dynamic aesthetic full of fine details to enjoy. There are some improvements coming to the production units, which would include improved QC on the bezel printing, smoother case finishes, improved grade A lume, increased thinness, as well as refining the end link to bracelet transition, with even the possibility of a micro adjust clasp. So this, of course, is a very early look. I'm quite picky when it comes to anything that's pre-production Kickstarter stuff that I feature on the channel. But honestly, this one really won me over with its, it just looks like a lot of fun. The fun colorways, the fun design, it's just really cool. So with that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. All right, guys, so this thing is very, very cool. Check it out. I love the colorways, and of course there's a lot of other options, but this thing is just really tricked out. And one of the main things I really enjoy is the fact that it is a very modern take on a dive watch, so very contemporary, but it's actually in a very versatile size at 39 millimeters. So somewhere, there's a lot of 39 millimeter divers that are more leaning towards the vintage aesthetic. Here you're going to get something that is definitely all about being modern and, being different. Although there are some, different elements like the flat link and, the unguarded crown that do make you think kind of traditional, but they just find different ways, even with the way that they did, the grips there on the bezel and on the crown, that just give you a different idea. So I thought that was really neat. But before we connect there, let's take a look at this packaging, which was pretty impressive and is, of course, a big part of when you are trying out a new brand. So it has this outer slip, of course, all color matched. And then you have this cool little thing. Check this out. Hey, that's pretty trick, right? Which I think is cool. So of course you have QR codes, you got your little, warranty card. I don't know. There's something about that was just really pleasing. Also, look at the quality of this leather pouch here. Very cool. You even get a little backer there so that your the back of the bracelet doesn't scratch your case back. And then of course you can see it's nicely finished. Even inside where the rivet would be, there's not one, so it's nice and smooth on the inside, and you have this plush material there. I don't know, that's pretty cool. And then inside you have a little pamphlet. In this case, there's also a little insert that kind of talks about some of the differences for reviewers. You can see here some of the other colorway options that are there. Very cool. And then even a nice FKM rubber strap that also has quick release spring bars. So very, very cool. And of course, with the colorway, this is just gonna pop. But we'll, in the interest of time here, we'll go ahead and focus on the bracelet option, and we'll get this stuff all tidied up. All right. Okay, now with that out of the way, here we go. So this is the piece, and it's pretty cool. So 39 millimeters in diameter, 11.6 millimeters thick, 46.9 millimeters lug to lug. Of course, those are the dimensions that I got with my calipers. Stainless steel, brushed and polished, and it even has some cool matte blasted sections there on the case side. And all of that really helps this just appear quite thin. I think visually it looks nice and thin, and they're actually planning to thin it down even more, which is always nice. Now, the crystal is a sapphire, and something interesting that they did is they do have a flat sapphire, but they weren't interested in thinness. So they, although they chose a flat one, they did have it slightly elevated and proud of the bezel, and then they gave it this rolled edge there, that curved edge, which is cool. It almost gives you kind of a box dome look with just a lot more flat surface on top. So I don't know, that again, that's a nice little touch, nice little detail, just something a little bit different than you normally see. You do also get an AR coating on the underside, and then there's this bezel, which has really great action. I know that they're actually toying with the idea of 120 click, but I think 60 is perfect, especially for this type of bezel. It's just, it hits on every turn. This thing is good. If you want to hear the sound a little bit. This is nice. It's like a really nice responsive. I like the bidirectional nature. Of course, it's because you do have dual indexes there. You have a 60-minute timer there in the orange index, and then on that green index is going to be the 12-hour timing. So you can basically, let's say if you're going to go 2 hours advanced, right? In California, I'm going to fly to Texas. Boom, it's that simple, right? I think it's, 2-hour difference. And then if I was to go to the East Coast, right, then a 3-hour difference. So it's just that easy. It's very intuitive and very smart. I mean, 12-hour bezels are so cool. And then the nice thing is they really were still able to retain the 60-minute counter as well by keeping that extra scale in there. So I really like that, and I can absolutely appreciate that. In terms of being a diver, it's still very useful. Also, when we get into the darkness portion of this, you'll see how much of this is actually lumed for legibility even in low light conditions, which I will say there's a lot of it. So pretty impressive. And then this is, of course, just a prototype, and it will be, again, beefed up and also more refined. One of the things I mentioned also was that transition, right? So when you have it like this, you don't even notice, but let's say if you have it draping, you can see the transition should be a little bit smoother there with that gap. So they're going to be able to shrink that gap down with some more refinement. So nice that they've already identified that, early on before, before even the first couple reviews or anything were out. That's something that they decided they needed to do better. So very cool. Screw down crown that is signed, and then on the case back, everything is nicely etched there. You can see even numbered. This is 000 because this is a pre-production prototype. But then you can expect to see numbered editions there for those first few, which is pretty cool. And although you can't see it, this has a Miyota 9015 movement inside. So that means 42 hours of power reserve and 4 hertz in terms of that beat rate, which is essentially going to be a 28,800 vibration per hour tick. Now, getting into the dial details, you have a matte dial with the date at 6 o'clock, nicely framed with applied indices, as you can see there. And it's pretty easy to tell where 12 o'clock is, thanks to the fact that there is no 6 o'clock indice. So you're always going to know where that is. And they didn't need to differentiate that from the 6 or the 9. And then at 6 o'clock itself, the cool thing is that window almost kind of mimics an indice. So it feels quite complete and not really like it's being disrupted. So I like that. You're also getting polished hands with these painted accents, as you can see, which are all going to help aid with legibility. And then in terms of the lume that's on here, it's actually C1 and BGW9 Superluminova. And again, this is a pre-production prototype, and the future release will actually have these upgraded to grade A C1 and BGW9. In terms of the water resistance, 200 meters, which is pretty standard for a dive watch. And it's using 20mm lugs. It does have quick release spring bars, as you can see, built in. And this flat link bracelet has a screw pin construction, so that is also another nice treat and something that enthusiasts always ask for. Now, in terms of the construction, or I'm to say the taper, it goes from 20mm down to about 17.6. I should say 15.7, sorry, and then 17.6 at the milled push button clasp, which does have 5-position manual micro adjust, and you can see it has actually pretty nice beveling there. Check that out, transitioning from the brush to the high polish, so very nice. And then of course it does come with that 20mm FKM strap with quick release spring bars, so that is all included within the package. So with all that said, let's actually get this piece on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, this wears really well. Definitely something that stands out is the fact that, yeah, it's modern, but still modestly sized. Normally more modern watches are just going to be pretty large. I'm not saying all modern designed watches, but you know, that kind of goes hand in hand. You get smaller sizes, the more vintage inspired stuff. You get larger sizes for the more modern and contemporary. Of course, if I do get my wrist a bit too close to the camera lens, you're going to get some perspective distortion, and it's going to make the watch feel a little bit larger than it really is. So what I like to do is keep my wrist nice and low here. And then what I'll do is I'll just tighten up the frame so that you can get a more detailed look while just keeping a bit of a truer aspect ratio as to how this may lay on your own wrist. And you can see there, beautifully centered. The lug to lug is very manageable at just under 47mm. And of course, those female end links, although they are going to be improved, they're not doing too shabby of a job currently in terms of the way that they flow. So the fact that this is, again, a pre-production prototype and it's already looking and wearing pretty darn good, I'm really looking forward to seeing, you know, the improvements on this piece. Check that out. Very slim profile, and of course they're breaking the lines up with those multiple finishes, that polish bevel, and that kind of creates this matte channel that goes in between. And I don't know, it's just different, and I like it. It's not different just for the sake of being different. It's different in a way that I find very interesting and purposeful. And that is just, you know, and then of course it's all really highlighted by a really cool colorway. So I'm digging that a whole lot. But with that said, let's go ahead, get it off the wrist, set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. All right, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. Hey, as you can see, pretty darn cool. Check that out. I like the different plays of blue against green, and I like the fact that it's quite illuminated, even though it doesn't necessarily have to be, especially for tracking multiple time zones. But at the same time, it also looks great. And, you know, who doesn't enjoy a good amount of Lume? Just kind of adds to the fun nature and theme. But one thing I always like to work in, of course, is a bit of a low light transition, because now it's going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. A lot of times you're going to find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, or just hanging out underneath the shade of a tree. So it is nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting. To maybe include a little bit of harsh lighting, which typically could expose any types of production defects. But all you're going to see here is probably just, you know, a couple of specks of dust, thanks to 4K resolution. And yeah, I mean, I don't know if this piece has been photographed and sent around quite a bit before it got to me. I'm sure it'll be sent again onwards after this. But yeah, this is a really cool looking piece. It's very dynamic, very eye-popping, and quite legible regardless of the lighting condition, which I really dig. Check that out. So the Lume just kicks on when things start getting dark. And then you also have, of course, just the way the colors are going to be contrasting and standing out when it's quite well lit. So yeah, there's a lot to really enjoy here. This one's a cool one. If you're a Miami Dolphins fan or something like that, I mean, this colorway is just about perfect. Okay, guys, closing thoughts on the wrist. Wears really nice and compact. Definitely looking forward to seeing how they refine the silhouette for the production units eventually. And then in terms of model variants, this will actually be available, as you guys saw, in 5 signature colorways, this being one of them. Definitely check the site links down in the description for the most current details. And then in terms of comparable models, you know, in a sea full of vintage inspired divers, it's definitely great to see something with a fully modern aesthetic and with an extra dose of personality to add to that. I don't know. It's cool. We got to support things when they're doing something different. Otherwise, you know, things don't evolve and they don't change and can't improve. So yeah, I'm digging that a whole lot. For me, guys, I guess the bottom line here is, you know, you guys know me. Like I mentioned, I'm pretty selective when it comes to Kickstarter watches in general, and sharing them with you guys, especially because I don't know if they're going to get funded, or, you know, I don't know a lot of times if I'm even going to be able to do a follow-up with a production unit, even if they do get funded. So it is definitely nice to see something like this, but it was just kind of too much fun to pass up. I think the colorway, the use case, I really like that from the function and the form. It all just kind of comes together for me, and yeah, I dig it. Is that a little dust right there? Okay, there we go. All right, guys. So with all that said, let me know what you all think down in the comments below. If you like the video, please hit like, and if you haven't already, please subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.